Count it in. Eyes up, record. Sunday night, silver flicker in the blue. Blink on, blink back, what did it do? Night vision up, heartbeat on the grid. I've lost tapes before, this one won't be hit. South sky blooms like an angel made of glass. Shapes in the dark, a spell they cast. Left brain, right brain, hold that frame. Pin the event, date, place, name. I am the observer, eyes on the unknown.
My name is Dale Robinson, and I want to welcome you to my channel, Observer of Anomalous Objects. You probably know this already, but in case you don't, I decided I'm going to do an experiencer series, and that really came out of the fact that it doesn't seem like Congress or the disclosure movement is ready for experiencers to come out and come forward. And so I thought, you know what, if they won't bring experiencers out and put them out to the masses, that's what I'm going to do. And so really excited. Had Jason Sands last week, and today we're going to have the one and only Thompson. And so I'm really excited. I want to go ahead and read a quick bio of Tom's. I'll make it quick. Thompson is a well-known UAP researcher and content creator in the UAP community. In fact, on X, he has 32,000 followers. He also has a couple of podcasts on YouTube. He's got Anomalous and also Cortex Zero. Now, the thing that I really appreciate about Tom is that he's not here to talk about other people's stories. He's not an outsider looking in. He's an experiencer. He's on the inside looking out. And so I'm really, really excited to have him on. As you're about to see, Tom has a keen mind, an incredible voice, and a wealth of knowledge about the phenomenon. And so get ready to have your world rocked. We are definitely not alone. And before I do that, I want to go ahead and play a clip from one of Tom's movies. In fact, I was very impressed with it. It's The Men in Black. And let me tell you something. It's got like 208,000 views. And that tells you how good it is. So let me go ahead and add that to the stage and get her going.
After throwing the list of topics into a randomizer, I landed on the subject of today's video. And that subject is the Men in Black. Ominous, foreboding, bizarre. Encounters with these black-clad individuals, if that's even the proper term to use for them, have been described as such. Numerous witnesses of unidentified flying objects are all too familiar with these shadowy figures, their true nature and purpose shrouded in a mystery. While researching the Men in Black, I was very surprised at some of the information I came across, and I'm certain many of you will have a similar reaction. What comes to mind for me if I imagine a visit from the MIB? Two men dressed in identical suits, black sunglasses, sometimes wearing brim hats. Slick leather dress shoes, at times adorned in a black trench coat. Stern demeanor, pale complexion, and compared to clothing store mannequins that have sprung to life in many instances. Robotic and at times even somewhat clumsy mannerisms. The pair at times appear to be twins, hailing from some alphabet agency. Clothing reminiscent of a much older era, along with the vehicles they have been reportedly utilizing for transportation.
Well, as you can see, quite the film. I remember when I saw it for the first time, I was just like blown away. That this guy's got a lot of talent. And so without any further ado, let me go ahead and bring my buddy, my friend, the nicest guy on X, Thompson, Cortex Zero, here on the podcast. Good to have you, Tom. How are you doing?
Oh, Dale, I'm so happy to be here with you, man. I had such a good time when we did this previously. And thank you so much for the kind words about my work, because I look at that video and I know it's technically my most popular. It's not It's not my favorite video of mine, and I look at it now and I'm like, oh, I could do so much better than that. It's so old now.
Good to have you here, Susan. Susan Alloway's
Yeah,
with us today.
Susan's great. Susan's
awesome.
lovely.
Yeah, I've seen her on Breaking the Silence channel, Steve Neal's channel. So
Definitely.
awesome. It's good. We're going to talk about being an experiencer. And as I've already said, Tom, what I respect about you, what I respect about what we're doing here is you're not here to tell someone else's story. It's nothing wrong with doing that, but it's better when you're hearing it from the person themselves. And so I'm really excited about that. But let's go ahead and put something out there to make sure that that everybody who's watching this understands that when we talk about being an experiencer, that's not just about, seeing aliens or seeing a spacecraft. The phenomenon is so much bigger than that. I mean, and the other thing, have you noticed this? I know I have, and I've talked to several others who are experiencers that are the same way, but it's like once you have that initial experience, it's just like you see more and more. I mean, I've had experiences with ghosts, spirits, psychic abilities, remote viewing, and some things, that we can't even name. I mean, we don't even know what to call them. I had something one time, Tom, and I've named it Tinkerbell because I can't come up with anything else for it. But I was in the bathroom upstairs and I looked down on the right side of my chest. There's this round ball it's got light coming off of it like in spears. And I'm sitting there looking at it going, what in the world is that? And it was there, I'm guessing maybe 10, 15 seconds, and it just disappeared. And it's like, what category do you even put that into, right?
What are you supposed to call that? And that's like one of my favorite things is when I come across, like if I'm making posts or making a video, I specifically tune into things like that, the uncategorized, like, and I don't know if you've noticed this too, Dale, being that you are also an experiencer, but it's the fact that oftentimes we have these amazing experiences, whether they're supernatural, preternatural, paranormal, high strangeness, UFO related. But when you're a lifelong experiencer, I've noticed that a lot of times there are experiences that we forget about. Like, even if they're really crazy sometimes, even if they, stayed with us for weeks and weeks, oftentimes I find myself tuning back into situations that I have previously experienced. And I'm just amazed. And I'm like, how is it that I forgot about this? Like, you're talking about Tinkerbell, this almost indescribable phenomena before you. I went through something very similar that also has a weird name. I don't know if I told you about this the last time I was on with you, because maybe I didn't remember it at that point. It was actually, I want to say it was like 2 or 3, I think it was like 2 years ago. It was on Halloween, and a female friend and I went out into the woods by me. There's actually a memorial, maybe about a half hour from me, for a pilot that crashed in the woods in that area many decades ago. And we were doing the CE5 protocols, and 2 things happened. First thing is very easy to describe. There was a malfunction with both of our phones, almost simultaneously, like separated by maybe like 25, 30 seconds, just apps closing and just weird glitches. But we're looking down a path. Oh, my light just went off. You see what I'm saying?
Unusual.
I swear to God, like, this is nothing new, right? All right, so you can still see me, so I guess it doesn't matter that much, right? I'm sure it'll come back on eventually. I'm not touching anything. I swear to God, I'm not touching anything. We're looking down a path. Yeah, it happens a lot. We're looking down a path. This is in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, so it's like a dirt path, trees, and then the moon is overhead. I don't remember if it was a full moon, but it must have been close because there was a decent amount of light. But as you look further down towards like the horizon line, it gets very dark. And what we both saw, the only way I can describe it to you, is a giant worm made out of static starts wiggling across the path and then goes up into a tree and disappears. Like, how do you tell people about something like that? It sounds drug fueled. It sounds hallucinatory. Up. There we go.
It come back on, didn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. Not the first time. Won't be the last time. My God, so strange.
You're lucky because whenever Yvonne Smith has come on, both times we got an echo, and I had to restart the podcast. So,
for like no reason though, like there was no reason for it,
no
right?
reason, just her podcast. That's just the weird thing about it.
So strange. I just these little things, you know. Some people, I get it. You can chalk this up to coincidence, and I understand that, and I'm sure that sometimes that is the case. But I really do believe that synchronicity and we'll call it physical material symbolism, they seem to be forces around us that it shows its hand to us and waves at us, you know, in certain instances. You've seen it. I know you have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking about when you said forgetting things. I was talking to, it was last Monday, I was talking to Mary Rodwell, and, you know, I was going to have a hypnosis session with her. I've had, you know, a bunch with Yvonne, and I love Yvonne. She's wonderful. But I thought, I'm going to see what it looks like to be hypnotized by somebody else. And so, you know, I had to write down a bunch of stuff, and we got talking and like the preliminary stuff, and we get talking, and then all of a sudden something else would pop up. Like I didn't even have Tinkerbell written down. That was just one of the examples. And by the time we were done, it was 2 hours later, and we hadn't even gotten to a hypnosis session, you know? So we had to figure out, we're going to have to schedule that later. But that's exactly right. I mean, like when you're a lifetime experiencer, there is so much, and it is easy to forget it. And sometimes you wonder if you're not getting a little help in that, right?
Yeah, I do have to wonder about that. There's actually, you know, and there's a situation that happened to me when I was a kid where, yeah, I think I told you about this a while back, but my friends and I, you know, over the course of time, to make a long story short, we thought there was something weird going on in the woods by my house. And it was so weird at the time, and very stressful even for like my little group. And then years and years and years go by, and I probably didn't think of it one time. And then I'm watching one of the Missing 411 documentaries that David Paulides has put together, who I'm a really big fan of. And this woman starts talking about seeing like an entity that reminded her of like Predator, where it's like self-cloaking and it's distorting, you know, the light and the space behind it. So it's like you can kind of see it, but it's not completely physical. And right there, I'm like, oh my God, I saw the same thing.
Oh, wow.
What the hell? Yeah, it's very strange to have that happen in that moment. And then, you know, again, I'm sitting here, I'm like, how is it that I forgot about that? Because it was crazy. It's one of those things. It makes you wonder, you know, my theory is that it has something to do with the nature of the reaction as it pertains to consciousness, right? Like we experience regular daily life. And consciousness, I feel, is probably very fundamental to all of existence. And then I also think it's non-local. So if you have an experience with something that maybe it's coming from outside of that stream, you know, I dare call it interdimensional, whatever you'd like to say, but it doesn't necessarily originate in our particular three-dimensional space and time. Perhaps the way that our brain stores that information through memory doesn't function the same way. I know it's very complex. It's kind of hard to describe, but I think it has something to do with that because I've seen this too many times. Like it's like a side effect of things like that. It's very strange, and I still haven't figured it out yet.
Well, it kind of fits with like the memory for dreams. The memory for dreams, I was having a hard time trying to figure out why you never remember most of your dreams, or, you know, why do you, you know, if you get a little bit of it, and it's actually your brain puts memories in a different place. But the other possibility with people forgetting, screen memories, you know, it isn't just screen memories aren't just from NHI. If the situation is extreme enough, if there's enough trauma, especially with sexual abuse or physical abuse.
Absolutely.
Freud was the one who came up with the term, of screen memories. And so maybe that's part of it too, that when you're talking about something that's other dimensions, I mean, that's pretty rocking, which actually leads into really the first question that I wanted to ask you. As we talk about paranormal activity, let's talk about the one you mentioned in your room, some of the weird stuff that was going on there, the paranormal activity.
Well, I guess I should throw this in too. And again, forgive me if I'm repeating anything from last time, but if someone didn't see that episode, then I guess it's good for them because they're hearing it for the first time too. But we'll skip forward, backwards technically. We'll go backwards and then backwards again. So there was a space that I was in with Astral and a bunch of different people on X like a couple years ago. And, it was very much centered around remote viewing and doing experiments, and trying to see locations that you weren't present at and trying to pick up on details. And the weirdest thing, I don't know if it was Astro or somebody else, but somebody made a joke in the space about remote viewing somebody's room. And I jokingly volunteered, not necessarily expecting anybody to really attempt it. And there's a girl on X who I run into every now and then. It's been a while, but she's really cool. Her name's Hey Ocean. And she's all over the place. I'm sure you've probably seen her before. She's always posting interesting things, and very beautiful girl. And she remote viewed my room. She messaged me and she's like, okay, I'm really going to try this. And I was like, all right, let's go for it. And the weirdest thing is that she picked up on a lot of really intricate details in my room. She picked up on, if I recall correctly, she picked up on something that I had in a box. So it wasn't even visible technically. Even if she was somehow, tapping into my camera or something, which I don't think is the case, obviously. She was able to bring that information out. But then we're in the space and I saw a shadowy mist. It started from my right behind me and zipped past behind me to my left. And I'm like, oh my God, was that her?
Yeah, that is interesting.
You know what I mean? So that was crazy. And then before that, I was sitting right here, exactly where we are right now, doing very similar things, just doing work, probably, writing a script or something. And for a very brief moment, I saw this. I don't know. I mean, I want to say it was round, but I don't know if it was three-dimensional. So it might have been a flat circle, but it almost looked like a gridded golden disco ball. I know it sounds just bizarre, but it was just right over my head, just sitting right there. So lines going down like this and then across, making a grid, a goldish yellow color. And also if you turned the opacity down to 70%, I could kind of see my poster through it. And then it just blinked out of existence. And I'm like, huh? I'm sitting here, I'm like, all right, I'm not falling asleep. I'm not, I'm not tired. That, I don't know. So I don't know what that was. The situation that you're probably thinking of to open this whole thing up is from when I was a kid.
It's some weird stuff on the wall and stuff that was going on.
Right. Yes. In the room across from me, I was 4 or 5 years old because I was the only one in the room at the time. My brother was born when I was 6. So it had to have been at some point before his birth. And I just remember this one night waking up and I just felt weird. It's very hard to describe too, especially from having a young mind at the time, what I was truly experiencing. But something woke me up, and whatever it wasn't it wasn't a sound. It was nothing like that. And my physical body was telling me that, even though my mind wasn't really grasping what was going on. And I remember looking at my lamp and the way that the light diffuses up from the top of the lamp on the wall, I saw almost what looked like an animated comet. It was like, it was like swirling and doing things. And then I fell asleep and I'm like, why has that, I don't know what that was. Like, I just remember it. I don't know why that has stayed with me for as many years as it has, but whatever it was, there's no reason for that motion to be occurring on the wall. There was nothing going on with my lamp. There was no battery in it. Nothing was rotating. Nothing was getting in the way of the light that was spreading on my wall. So it's like, what is that?
Was this like your second experience or your first?
That's the earliest. That one is the earliest one that I remember. Yep.
Well, the thing I really want to hit on, I want to cover the events, but we're doing an experiencer series, and I really want to reflect on what it means to be an experiencer. I want people to understand, how jolting it is. No matter what your experiences are, and whether you look at them as good or bad, if you're not ready for them, they're jolting. So did that change your sense of reality that day? And how did you cope with it?
Yeah, I started catching on from a pretty early age that the world was kind of a weird place, and that I think the first thing that occurred to me was that not everybody was aware of that. I've grown up with really good parents, a really good extended family, a lot of people who are very open-minded and very receptive of other people's ideas. So I was, ingrained with that as I was growing up. So I always questioned things. So, one of the very first things that I latched onto outside of even UFOs, was hauntings and wanting to explore, the Ouija board and, things of that nature, watching spooky movies. But when that event happened, and then following that, I was having these really weird dreams, we'll call them, where I was being moved around my room by like an unseen force, like I'm being picked up and moved around the room. And I can just remember how many times I would end up, like 4 or 5 in the morning, picking my pillow up and going into my parents' room and sleeping next to them. Oh, at that time, those types of things were happening as far as I can remember from the ages of like 5 to 9. Okay. It went on for a while.
Were your parents really open to this kind of stuff, or were they, were they believers or not believers, I guess?
Well, that's a really good question to ask. So my dad, we'll put him in the believer category. He's very well-spoken, but very soft-spoken as well. So he might not in every sitting come right out and say it. Instead, what he does is he'll have like 5 different conversations with you. And by the time you hit that 5th one, you're like, oh, okay, he's on board, right? Like he gives you like little bits, just how he is. We're very similar in a lot of ways too. I think that's one of the areas that we're different. My mom is an interesting case. My mom, she knows what we're doing right now, right? Like she says hello, of course, to everybody, and then she likes to say, "Oh, I don't believe it. I don't believe it." But when she says that, though, she kind of has admitted at this point, especially after what happened to her.
That's what I'm saying. She had an experience, didn't she?
Yes. So she definitely doesn't mean that exactly. What she means is that it freaks her out, and she kind of hopes that it isn't that, right? But she is an intelligent woman too. She had a sighting on our back deck, literally like while I was at work one day. I think it was in May, like May 23rd or something. I have to go back on my timeline, and I came home and she's telling me about it, and I'm like, wait, stop. I turned on my camera. I was like, now tell me about it. But she also had something happen to her that I want to get her on camera for. And since this is an experiencer series, and I know this is very much my stuff, I really have to tell you about this one because I have some very, very deep suspicions about this. And I appreciate that. So I can't wait to see your face when you hear this one, because you can only imagine how I reacted. So My mom told me that when she was like in late middle school, early high school, she was walking home one day with a friend, and they would walk kind of like she lived in South River, New Jersey, which is north of me, and she and her friend were walking, I guess, along the woods, not in, but just like along the tree line. And it's very odd how she describes this whole thing. And I think you're going to pick up on this pretty quickly, like what's going on here. But she says that something fell out of the sky. And I'm like, well, how do you know? And she was like, well, we saw it. And I'm like, what did you see? And she's like, I don't know, but something fell. And so like that part right there is very strange. Like, I'm like, well, you said something fell out of the sky, but you're having like a tough time describing it, like all these different things. She's like, it was something, it was on fire and it fell out of the sky. And like, it took them only like 3 to 5 minutes, but they walked through the woods to try to find whatever it was. And she says they came across almost like kind of like a small crater. She said whatever it was not big, which I thought was very interesting, right? She was like, it's not very big, like smaller than a car, like no larger than like a smart car or something, like whatever it was. But she didn't get a good eye on it. But they get back there. And she said there were multiple tall men in uniform that told them to get out of there, like military. And I'm like, were they police? And she said, no. And I'm like, okay, you're saying they were military. And she was like, they were in uniforms. I think so. They looked like it. And I'm like, okay, so you get back there and they're already back there is what you're telling me. She's like, yeah, they were back there when we got there. And I'm like, Mom, did you see any vehicles? And she was like, no, they were just like already back there. And I'm like, Mom, I need you to take a deep breath when I say this to you. I was, I'm like, one of two things. They either knew it was coming down and were tracking it, and I guess they were waiting nearby, but again, you would still assume that there would be some type of equipment, something of that nature. Right. And I'm like, Mom, or those were not military officials at all. And it's funny, she had like a very sober reaction to that. She didn't freak out or anything. She didn't go, oh God, that's crazy. She just kind of gives me that look like, huh. I wish I could get into her mind's eye, but again, I'm going to try to get her on camera about this. She's a little camera shy. I'm surprised I even got her the first time.
Give her a hug for me. Crazy. Okay, Tom. Make sure you give her a hug for me. I will definitely do that. And you can never give them enough hugs. Yeah, I love spending time with them, and we just got back from vacation, and I made sure to spend as much time as I could. Like I hopped off of social media pretty hard and was like, listen, I don't have any more time, so I'm going to be able to get to do this, right? Like they're in their 60s, I'm in my late 30s. I need to take advantage of this. I need to go out and when we're done here tonight, like my mom, my dad, and I are taking the dog for a walk. Awesome.
Because, you know what I mean? Like my parents, they mean like literally everything to me, like literally everything, especially, my dad and I are very tight. I'm a mama's boy, as they say, for whatever reason, but God, I almost lost my dad last year.
Oh, really?
He had a situation that arose. It was diabetic ketoacidosis.
Ooh.
And that was like the scariest week of my entire life, I think, because he pulled my brother and I aside and had like the conversation with us, like, if something happens to me, take care of Mom. And I'm like, I never heard him speak that way before. So that was really intense.
Well, when you start getting in the 60s, I mean, you start thinking about death and you want to make sure you say what you need to say. But my mom lived to be 88. So, and one of the ladies I work with, sure, she's 92. She drives around. She's living independently. And I go, you give me hope. You give me hope. She's 92, completely independent, got a sharp mind. I mean, she's doing great. So
that's amazing. That's
the case with your parents too.
And everybody out there, be as close with your parents and your family as you can, and be good to the elderly, for God's sake.
Oh, absolutely.
Now
I had a question about, because you were bringing this up about your mom and how she reacted to it. That seems to be, I mean, and I've said it before, I don't want to illustrate it again, but there are many cases, and I know of some myself from people I know, where two people will see the exact same thing and you get two completely different reactions. You know, your mom's kind of like, you're running towards it, and other people are running from it. And that's basically the reactions that people have in it. And sometimes it's the exact same thing.
It's true. That is absolutely true. And you'll even get not even just those different reactions, but oftentimes the phenomenon likes to play tricks with our perception, and people will see two different objects, right?
Yeah, that's the key word, perspective, right there, and stuff. And it's like, are they doing it, or are we doing it? And that's the question I'm not so sure about. But I think some people are just cautious. Some people are just fearful of the unknown. The one I saw was, it was just an object way up in the sky, and they were looking at it. But one of them didn't want anything to do with it. And the other one was like, "Wow, this is cool. This is amazing. Can you see that?" That's definitely you. So I'm guessing you weren't, this first experience, you weren't scared. You were probably more intrigued than anything else, like what in the world's going on. You were kind of already into the subject a little bit, correct?
Deeply, like from birth, it seems. I get asked this question every time I, go on a new show, like, how did you get into the subject? And I'm like, I don't know. It's like I was born into the subject. Like, I was just immediately obsessed with it as far back as I can even remember. I mean, really, we have books that my mom always said that my grandmother used to tell her that it was a sin to throw away a book. And so, she had beautiful penmanship, and she had a really large book collection, and she really just loved reading. And we have books from when I started reading, and in that collection, you immediately find books on this subject. Like, so this is from the very beginning of me reading. It's like, why? And I've told you this too. I've told other people this, but I've always suspected that's a clue to something, right? And then the familial, generational, oftentimes, abductees, right? Like, they will have family members that have gone through things, and they, didn't know about it, and it seems to go back through their family tree. So, like, once my mom, once she told me that story about what happened, down in the woods, I'm like, I think there's more that she probably just doesn't remember or doesn't realize it was that, because she doesn't have the same frame of reference that I do studying this. And B, it spread down to me. This is not something that started with me. It started with other people in my family. I wholeheartedly believe that at this point.
Well, Bud Hopkins was talking about bloodlines. That seems to be a thing. And then even Yvonne Smith, talking to her, she's hypnotized hundreds and hundreds of people, and she's definitely says normally there is a generational component to it. And even in my life, I can see that as well. It seems to be some form of contact with multiple generations and stuff. So do you think to me, the way you're describing it is that it was kind of like you were being prepared. There was something guiding you, pushing you, driving you to be able to be where you are today. But do you think that first encounter kind of helped prepare you for future encounters? Because we're going to get to some of the other ones, and it's like, some of them are just mind blowing, and mind altering. We're going to get to that GPS incident that wasn't there. But do you think that this one actually helped you kind of, get you kind of your feet wet, where you were able to deal with the stuff that came later?
Yeah, I think it did. Now, looking back on it, I didn't pick up on that initially. But looking at it now, yes, I think that is the case. And I also believe that there were probably other incidents that I don't remember for whatever reason that were probably stepping stones in that direction as well, leading up to, the very first major situation. I mean, it still really is the pinnacle. I've had experiences that some people would probably consider on par with that, but that one still takes the cake, in all honesty, more than any other.
That was your first one, so you would think that that's the thing. This is kind of your beginning of it, but I want to tell you, I relate with you 100%, and the fact that it seems like I can look at my own life and go, okay, how did I end up here? And then I can start to go back and look and say, okay, this helped prepare me for this, and this helped prepare me. Maybe not the route that I would have thought, because being a pastor and all, I'm going like, why that route? Why not just through the universities and get my master's that way or something? And then I realized something. I realized, I had drugs and alcohol problems, and that was the one to help me clean up my life in that area. But it gave me a lot of the same tools that I need to be able to do what I'm doing now as well. But I honestly believe, Tom, this is like my second calling. I don't, have an ego or anything like that, but I just feel a draw or pull to do this. Like you're like me. I'm not making any money off this. I'm spending thousands of dollars to be able to do a podcast, spending, hundreds of hours to do them as well. And, and it's like I'm driven towards this. Do you ever feel driven to do what you do?
100%. 100%. I mean, my God, some of the torture I put myself through, oftentimes it's, you have a long day of work, right? At your normal day job, you get home, right? So I get home normally like around 7:30, 8 o'clock. It's hard to then go and start editing and researching and doing those things. There are days where it's like, I really just want to chill. I want to just kind of sit and vegetate and, maybe, play my guitar or work on things. And then there's like that little voice in the back of my head sometimes that just will not allow it. I mean, there are days that I do allow myself to recharge, and I need to do that. And I always recommend people do that. But yeah, and Dale, I got to be honest, man, I don't know. And we don't have to go into it, obviously, because it's personal. But I don't know if I knew you had any substance abuse issues, which is another thing that you and I actually have in common.
I'm usually pretty open about it. I'm open in the church, and I think, like I said, a lot of poor decisions, but to be honest, as a pastor, I can relate with people that, say pastors that have been raised in the church, never had any of those problems. And so I have grace for them, because I need the same grace. I made the same mistakes, but the more important thing is I can take something that was bad and make something good out of it. And
100%.
I want to stress for those that don't know me, maybe watch me for the first time, even though I'm a pastor, I want it to be clear. I am not religious. I am spiritual. My only creed is love God, love people. And that's who I try to be. My podcast isn't about religion or anything like that. It just happens to be, that's my other job and stuff. But, like I said, I just brought it up because it's my other calling, this is my second one, but I have no doubt at all that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and you're doing what you're supposed to do. Let's move on and let's talk about your Boy Scout UFO sighting. Go ahead and describe that for those that maybe haven't heard it before.
Well, the craziest thing, that's ever happened to me, bar none. There's, again, from maybe another person's perspective, I've had some situations that maybe they would compare it to, but I can't. This one stands alone. It was the spring of 1998. I was in the Boy Scouts. Went on my very first camping trip ever, and I was in the Boy Scouts because all my friends were in it, and I wanted to hang out with them. Didn't really even care about what we were doing, but then I got into it. It started becoming fun. I was 9 years old, and we were in what used to be called Lebanon State Forest here in New Jersey. And this was in the spring, and it was about sometime between I usually put it between 12 and 3 a.m. It was probably closer to 2, 3 a.m. It was later. Full beautiful moon that night that, it almost looked like partial daytime the whole night because of how bright it was, the sun reflecting its light off the moon. And it was totally clear, no clouds. A very, very, very light breeze on the air. It was beautiful. It was really, really an amazing, perfect night of weather. And I was getting my fire badge. And it's kind of silly, how we were getting it. But we were, we're tending a fire that was already put out for the most part, but just making sure nothing was popping up. And kind of poking sticks at it, like, yeah, we're adults now. And look at us, we're masters over the fire. And there were only two of us up at this point. It was myself and another kid by the name of Jermaine, who I have been looking for years. I don't know what's happened to him. I used to see his mother walking around my neighborhood a lot, but I think she may have had some type of medical issue of some kind. I don't see her anymore, and she always seemed like something was wrong physically. So I don't have any like connection there, unfortunately. But it was such a blessing, though, that he was there, because that was immediately the one thing that told me that I wasn't crazy. It was so important. So we're doing what we're doing. We're sitting on these logs, and I don't even know what we were talking about, just minding our own business. And I took notice to the fact that all of the noises stopped around me. All the crickets, all the birds, all the nighttime insects, the creepy crawlers, everything that makes a little noise. It was just dead quiet. So I always called that loud silence. And it's funny, my cousin thinks that's, I'm writing a book and gradually, and she thinks that's what I should call it, actually. So a little self-plug, I guess. But it dawned on me how not normal that was, even though, it's not like I was like a woodsman, or, I hadn't been out in the woods that many times that I know all these tiny little things, but that was just like super obvious. And there was this pushing of air. I remember that I feel like I can remember it like hitting my back almost too. And something like stimuli wise, something like my body picked up on was like, that's not wind. Like you could tell, you could feel like it was an object, like a car driving past you almost. It was artificial in nature. And I'm this, and God knows how long this whole situation even lasted. It's very hard for me to even wrap my head around that one. I really don't know. It's hard to say because it felt like an eternity. All of a sudden, all over my body, and it started off kind of soft and then gradually intensified. It felt like I was just in a bubble of static electricity. I could feel it everywhere. I always compare it to putting your arm next to a balloon, and it just spread all over me. And that did frighten me a little bit, because I wasn't sure if it was coming from outside of me or inside of me. I wasn't, could this be like a medical situation? Like, what is this that's happening right now? Maybe lightning? Like, am I about to get struck by lightning? I was very confused by that. And then over the treetops. So we were in a circular clearing, pretty wide. And I believe it was off to my right. Here comes the tip of this object, and it gets my attention pretty quickly. And here it comes ever so slowly right over the top of my head. And it was your stereotypical black triangular craft with a light on each corner. Nothing in the middle, though. I always tell people that because they say, oh, was there a red light in the middle? No, there actually wasn't on this. It was like a matte black. And the lights were one of the strangest things I have ever seen in my life. They were white, but they were also bluish on like the edges of the haze. But they were elemental looking, almost like morphic. They looked like liquid and gas. So another thing that I came across not all that long ago, I was on Amazon looking for random gifts for someone. Have you ever heard of an infinity mirror?
No, I haven't. I've heard of the infinity pulse, but never a mirror.
Infinity mirror, it has, it's layered, so you have lights, and then it just keeps going and going and going and going and going into like the mirror. That is very much like what these lights looked like. They had like an inner depth to them that was just like never ending. Like just like there was like a vanishing point. But it was like swirling and moving, and I'm like, what in God's name is that? It's right over top of me, just like a few 100 feet. You know, I always estimated this object as being like the size of maybe like an aircraft carrier. I mean, it was huge. I have never, ever seen something this big in the air before.
How far away?
Oh, you know, so I'm standing here. I mean, Dale, it's right up there. It's like, imagine an aircraft carrier at the height of like an airplane when it's coming in for like a landing around an airport, you know? So like,
So is it like just above the trees to kind of get perspective?
so if this is the top of the tree,
Right.
it was like up several lengths above that. So but it still felt like I could hit it with a rock, but I think that's because of the size.
The size of it, yeah.
Yeah, it was close, but it was also enormous. I mean, we have planes that come in for landings around here near Fort Dix. And which is funny too, because there's something that happened there in the 70s that's a whole nother situation that I eventually want to do a documentary about, hopefully, because no one's ever done it. I've seen planes come in for landings so often. Like, it's every week I see it. It was like that close, where it's like if somebody had written something on the side of this object, I would have potentially been able to read it. I mean, it was right there. So there's no mistaking it, right? Like there's no misidentification.
It wasn't a balloon or anything like that.
So, you know, it's funny to me when I see all of these arguments online that go on sometimes about whether or not something weird is out there. It's like, that's done for me already.
Yeah.
You know, I don't live that life anymore. And Jermaine was losing his mind. I mean, he was petrified, but he just couldn't even move. He was
Did you point it out to him, or did he just see it on his own?
Oh, he just saw it on his own. We both caught it at the same time.
Was it noisy at all, or was it humming, or just completely silent?
Not a whisper. Nothing.
And he was freaking out. So this is the opposite reaction here. You're enthralled. You think how amazing this is, and he's absolutely terrified.
He was the type of fear that you don't really want to see in anybody, because it makes you feel bad, where it's like, hey man, it's take a deep breath here, right? So, you know, I think something in my mind was telling me like, oh my God, it's a UFO. Oh my God, oh my God. But it was still so mesmerizing and perplexing. It was enough to keep me sort of sane and stable in the moment. But I think part of me was still probably, you know, like a little scared, you know, but I think it was overwhelmed by the fact that I was so blown away at what was going on. And it's sitting there. And this is the part, again, I didn't talk about this part for years, even when I was talking about the sighting, but there was a moment where this object, it made some kind of like connection with me, is the only way I can describe it.
One of my questions. Thank you. That was one of my questions.
It was bizarre. The sensation.
Did you get like a feeling, or what was it? Is that what it was? Because I had one of those, and then Jake Barber had one, and it's like, I want to hear yours. I'm not going to read mine.
I know what you're talking about with Barber, but his is different than mine for sure. Mine, there was actually like a physical, well, I'll call it semi-physical, but I mean, I felt it, but it was very odd. It felt like I had popcorn popping like under my skull, but it was very subtle at the same time, but noticeable. And it was like intensely imagining a sensation to the point that you feel it. It was very weird because it was dulled, but noticeable at the same time. It was really strange. Because it felt like it was just like not on the top of my skin, but like inside, you know, like underneath. You'd have to feel it, really. It's very hard to describe even. I call it the popcorn popping, but God knows if that's even the right way to describe it at this point. And right in that moment, that's when I knew. I'm like, that's not human.
Mm-hmm.
that moment right there was the most intense moment of my entire life.
Did you feel anything like love or anything like that, or was it just you didn't have a sense of what it was, just that it was?
Just that it was, and it was like I didn't have to question it.
Right.
No hate, no evil. It wasn't love. It was the most profound sense of like wonder and curiosity. Like so powerful that it makes you emotional. It's like the first time you see a sunset, or but like amplified, or like, you know, you meet the person that you're meant to fall in love with, like, but just 1,000 times what those things feel like. It was like it was so overwhelming and so powerful. You know, if I sit long enough and think about it, like I'll cry. You know, it was just like, oh my God. Yeah, it's just the most powerful wonder and curiosity I've ever felt. Like, oh my God. Like there is another intelligent being that is taking notice to me right now. And it sees me. It wanted to like reach out. And again, I'm not saying I'm special or anything of that nature. Not at all. It could have just been by chance. They're like, oh, hey, look, a human, and it just feels intense to me. You know, I don't know. But it was a very, very deep sense of like that childhood curiosity, but just so like it just overflowed. It was so powerful. And then it detached from me. I felt the same popcorn popping sensation underneath my head. And then it just started drifting off again. And sort of everything again happened in reverse, right? There's another push of the air, the static electricity goes away, the sounds come back. And it's just amazing how we just didn't talk about it. We just did not talk about it. And I did not tell anyone about this until I was 18 years old.
Wow. That's why I was a couple of my questions, but I like what Susan had to say here, because I think this somewhat represents, you know, it's overwhelming, goosebumps, fears, amazement, shock. Now mine was different. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my temperament. I'm not a super brave guy. I'm a very cautious guy, but with my experience, it was just honestly, and like I said, I've done drugs and everything else. It was the greatest feeling I've ever had, ever. And you know, there was a drug that wouldn't harm you like that, I'd like to have a bottle of those, because it was amazing. And you know, I don't know that I'll ever have that feeling ever again in my life, but I'm glad that I had it once.
Me too. You know, I'm pretty open about my substance abuse issues. I had an opioid problem.
Mm.
And if anybody knows anything about that, you're essentially artificially jacking up your dopamine levels, and it feels great.
Right.
No, no, not compared to this. This, again, it was like, you're asking if it felt like love or anything like that. It's like, yeah, I guess you could say that it was so wonderful and curious and powerful and mesmerizing that it like converts into that. Right. It was just, there was definitely nothing malevolent involved. And I feel bad for saying that, even because I know there are so many good people in the community, like Fringe, that have had terrible experiences. And
we're going to get to that. We're going to cover that. Yeah, because that's exactly it. The one thing that I appreciated is I got to relive it during a hypnosis session.
Yeah, I'm like, going to do that.
Yeah, so that was one thing I really did like. And that's when I was like, when I relived it, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is an amazing feeling. Like, you know, maybe someday, you know, when we die or whatever, wherever we move on to, maybe that won't be a strange feeling. Maybe that's how we'll feel every day. At least I hope so. This world is tough, but we're going to get into that. So you didn't tell anybody. Is that the reason you didn't tell anybody? Was that because you were afraid nobody would believe you?
Yeah. Yeah, it really was that. And also we can add the caveat that here's the kid that is deeply interested in UFOs and space and science fiction and all these things, I already came with a label. So, I mean, thank God I was given the sense of mind that I had at that time. Because oh man, I can't even imagine what growing up would have been like if I had started telling like my friends and like people at school this story. It probably wouldn't have been good, Dale. I don't it was a
Well,
different time, right? Like I think they would have made fun of me, and I think it would have been brutal.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's I don't know if things are really that much different today because there are things honestly that I told them once on a podcast, and I didn't do it intentionally, but I thought it was an hour podcast I was on. I was the guest, and it turned out to be 2 hours. And I'm always over prepared, and so this was like at the bottom of the list. It was the last thing I ever planned on talking about, but I really had no choice since I didn't want to look like an idiot running out of time. And so I told it, but as soon as I told it, I felt absolutely gutted by it. I was like, I overshared. And even to this day, it's just something I keep to myself. I have a few friends that I'll share it with because I trust them enough. But the reason being, and you know what I'm talking about, if it hadn't happened to me, if I hadn't experienced it myself, if I hadn't seen the stuff with my own eyes, there's a chance that I might not believe it. So why would I share that with somebody, that hasn't gone through that? I'm grateful for Mario Woods' friendship because he's one of the people that I can share it with.
He's a great guy. He was one of the first interviews I ever did, and he's so funny and so down to earth. Like, he's such a nice guy. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but if you talk to him at any point, I don't know if he'll remember me, but you'll definitely have to tell him I said hello. He is telling the truth. I believe him wholeheartedly. He came off believable right off the bat, immediately. And I think you and I and many others, I think we come with a level of discernment when people approach us with stories that maybe non-experiencers don't always have as often. Like, I get messages and emails all the time. Hey, look at my footage. Hey, hear my story. And there are many times where I get 3 sentences in and I'm like, oh, geez, this person's talking about how they, are the reincarnation of this and they unlocked this and they invented this. And I'm like, oh my God, but then you get the other people who are like, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm from here. I watched your channel. Like there's like these little cues that I pick up on, right? Where I can tell someone is being very sincere versus someone who I think might be bored. I've had to shut some people down, unfortunately. And I hope I was right. And I think I was. I think I was definitely right. But I think we have that. And when we're lucky to have it, because I think there are people out there who, even if they hear this type of story from me or you, they'll still shut it out just on the basis of, I've already made up my mind. I don't want to hear anything like this. This isn't real. I don't want to deal with it, or it might scare them even. And I feel sympathy in that regard. Like, I get that. Like, some people are really afraid of this whole thing because of pop culture and the movies and TV shows we all grew up with. Like, it scared the hell out of them, and that's what they have in their minds. But it really is a full spectrum of experiences, and it's also a full spectrum of different types of people. There's people who are telling the truth, and there are people who are lying. It is just the nature of the situation we're in.
Right. Some people want attention, other people. But the one thing I try to do now that I've had some of these, extreme experiences, is I don't necessarily believe everyone, but I don't completely shut them down either. I don't just say that can't be, because that's what people would do to me if they heard some of the things that happened. They would say, exactly. Oh, that just can't be that, that's this, whatever. And I'm going, you know what? That's why I'm not sharing it. But also it's actually helped me to look at other people, and maybe they're lying, maybe they're not. I tend to be a skeptical person. I want to have something that's reasonable, but not everything in life is reasonable. Like the GPS thing that went on.
It's not reasonable at all. See, now I can tell you are a podcaster, because now you're doing segues. You've made it, Dale. You've officially made it, my friend. That's so funny, because I've had that happen so many times doing podcasts, and it becomes like a thing. That's so funny. Yes, that happened. This is a thing that happened to me. I was just talking about this not that long ago too, with Astral, because I've been doing some lives with him recently, and this kind of came up. I was driving somewhere that I know like the back of my hand one day, and I mean, again, this is an area that it's like you're not getting lost. It's like driving home. I knew this area, and it's not anything complicated either, right? Like there's 2 turns. It's like a straight drive and 2 turns. I could go do it right now, blindfolded, and I will end up exactly where I need to be. I know where it is. This time, though, I get to the end of the road, I hit the stop sign, and I look to my left, and there's supposed to be a road that takes me to the center of New Egypt. And the road is not there. It is just trees. And of course, I'm like really confused. And I'm just like, did I take a wrong turn? But one of the things I thought about recently with this story, like really re-examining it, was the fact that there was a word written on the stop sign. It was like oak or something like that, or Oakley, like somebody's name maybe. And that was present on the stop sign. And one of the times that I've gone back down this road, it's on that stop sign. But now there's no woods to the left. This time there was, though. And I'm I'm like, okay, I need to ground myself here. And I'm driving. I make the right, because it's the only thing I can do at this point other than turn around. There's no cars in any of the driveways. It starts raining when there was no rain in the forecast. The weather is shifting. I'm like so lost at this point. And it's funny because I really wasn't thinking of it in terms of like paranormal immediately. I just was kind of just beating myself up a little bit. Like, you must have done something wrong, because it may not seem like it, but I'm a grounded, skeptical, rational person. My feet are planted firmly on the ground here on Earth, right? Like exactly. And I'm like, okay, what's the best decision here? It's like, maybe you just took a wrong turn, whatever. And maybe it's just a coincidence that all these other things are going on. So I take my GPS and I set a route to Tootie's Ice Cream in the middle of New Egypt, which would have been that left, mind you. Mm-hmm. And it says, just keep going straight. And I'm like, well, A, that doesn't make sense because it's in the other direction, but okay, we're going to keep going straight. So I'm driving, I'm going along. I don't know. It was like maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And I literally watched this all happen over like a 10-second span. I'm driving and I start seeing things that I'm very familiar with. All of a sudden I start seeing some cars. Oh, there's my ex-girlfriend's house, which is the reason that I knew this whole area so well, because I dated someone in that town that I was very, very in love with when I was younger. And so I'm very familiar with that. It's very much seeped into my brain at this point. It's something I just cannot forget. It's one of like my first loves in life, right? And I start seeing normal things again. Now the weather is normal again. And I literally watch the GPS go zoop, and it just flips around. And now I'm driving in the opposite direction of the location that I just GPS to. Tootie's is behind me.
Wow. It's like a Twilight Zone moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like that.
Absolutely.
And for the longest time, man, I really tried to like debunk it. I did. I was just like, okay. And I laid out like all the turns that I made and really, really thought about every little thing that I did. I picked up my medication at Acme. I did this. It's like I didn't do much. I went there and was like, oh, it's nice out. I'm going to go take a drive. And, again, a couple turns.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It isn't like you were going clear across town where you made 15 turns or something like that. This is an area that you knew. So obviously it was, these are the stuff. I don't even know what to label it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, what do you even label it? Did you step into another dimension? Is that what we're looking at? I mean, I don't know. What do you call that, Tom?
It was like a parallel version of the town that I was supposed to be in. Yeah, it's like Twilight Zone, high strangeness, alternate reality. I mean, on one hand, I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool. The researcher in me. And then on the other hand, I'm like, okay, that's really weird. And I hope that doesn't happen again, because if it does, like, what if I get stuck? I don't want any part of that. I got things to do over here in this dimension. I don't need to go slipping into any others. Yeah, I mean, that's high strangeness is usually like where my mind goes. Because that's a nice umbrella term for all of these really strange occurrences. And I've heard of other people talking about stuff like this though too. I'm not the first person to experience a glitch.
Right. Did you ever at first think maybe you were having a stroke or something like that?
No, I didn't think it was anything medical or anything. No, definitely no.
You knew right away that it wasn't.
It was just I was wide awake, felt good, had a lot of energy that day. Again, it was just like if I'm in the mood to go for a drive because it's so nice out, like I'm feeling like peak. I feel great. And
I wasn't insinuating that it was.
No, it's a good question.
My point is, your mind's going to automatically going, "What in the world's going on here?" And maybe that's just my default. Something's wrong with my mind.
No, I think that's totally fair. And now that I'm a little older, like I might have that type of reaction now that I'm, going on 37. Like I might, be like, am I having like a medical thing right now that's affecting, my cognition? But I have no history of anything like that. I've never been diagnosed with any hallucinatory illness, nothing.
No. This is paranormal. There's no question about that's what it was and stuff. It's just though, like I was, and it's not a paranormal thing, but I was at the bowling alley 2003 or something like that. And all of a sudden everything got blurry and I can't explain it. I threw my last ball. I thought I was having a stroke. I was just hoping to make it home to see my wife before I died. And I must have pinched something or, I can't even tell you what it was, but it affected my eyesight. Now, luckily it wasn't a stroke and stuff, but that's why when you told me that story, that's why my thought was maybe, that your fear would have been that it was something.
It is like scary. That. I think, now, if that happens tomorrow, it might cross my mind a little differently, especially being given the fact that I'm so afraid of dying. It's like my ultimate fear, despite my beliefs and things, with consciousness. Like I still don't want to go through the process. It's terrifying. But
let me ask one question. I'm going to step back just for a minute because I meant to ask the question, but I forgot. During the Black Triangle event when you were 9 years old in the Boy Scouts, did you feel like there was any missing time in that event? I mean, you said it felt like it went on forever, but you probably had no way to track time, or did you?
No, again, pre-cell phone, wasn't wearing a watch. I've never been someone that's really worn a watch very much. I don't want to say missing time. I want to say distorted. It felt like point A to B, like maybe there was no interruption as far as like a chunk of time missing, but it definitely felt like, you're taking the last shot in the NBA finals for the championship. Like like I could tell like my mind made it last longer than it probably did because of the nature of what was going on. But I don't know if anything missing. I will say though, the reason that I want to go and go into like a hypnotic regression, aside from the fact that I want to see how many details I can pull out, were there any other markings on the craft? Was there anything missing? Were there any beings present that I could spot? I want to make sure that nothing else happened because I really don't know, but my body has been screaming at me for years. Like there is more information to gather and it's just, buried beneath the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you talked about remote viewing earlier, and one of my favorite podcasts was when I had you and Astro on. I thought that we really had a great podcast. I loved it. Absolutely. But, Astro's known for remote viewing, and you talked about somebody, you were involved with a group and this girl remote viewed your room. What's the most interesting time you've ever had outside of that? Maybe something that you experienced when you were doing it. Well, maybe before we do that, let's do this. Maybe you can explain to people that aren't familiar with remote viewing exactly what remote viewing is.
So remote viewing, it's very simple, really. It's the ability to discern information from a location in which you are not present. So, Dale, you're thousands of miles away. You're in your house, I'm in mine. I go into basically a concentrated state of focus meditation, and I try to pull out details about your location. But it gets very interesting too, because it's not just figuring out what's in the room visually. You're able to pull out smells and, colors, sensations. There are different, like, all of the five senses can be involved in remote viewing. At first I thought it was very much a visual thing, and the more I did research on it over the years, I came to realize that it involved all of the senses. So it's just grabbing information from somewhere that you are not currently present at a distance, and it involves, at least I believe, and I think most people would agree at this point, what's called consciousness non-locality. And what that really means is that the human mind, the thing that makes you truly you, that I believe is also the soul, basically.
Yeah.
It is not being generated by your brain. It is actually coming from outside of you, and you are receiving it. You're a transducer that is converting a consciousness field into like a biologically stable version of that in order for you to have a human experience. You are consciousness having a human experience, basically. And because of that, you are able to discern information from basically anywhere and even at any time, because you are connected to something that is outside of time and space physically. That's what I think, at least. But it's probably the best explanation I could give.
Like a master server out there, and we're all computers.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. That, I made this comparison recently, and I'm going to do a video, like a little, I kind of want to do it almost like an infographic, and maybe make it like slightly humorous, even like kind of cartoony maybe. But like, I compared it to, you have a router in your house. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's source, God, the consciousness field, the point of origin from which you come. You are part of the whole. You are the raindrop, but you are also the ocean. Then you have, the phone, the tablet, TV, all these things that need an internet connection these days, right? The internet connection is the soul, and it's being transmitted from where? The server. That's exactly how I look at it.
Well, the other thing that's cool about remote viewing, I've read Ingleswan and several others, is it's not limited by time. You can remote view things in the past. You can remote view things in the future. I've done a little bit of it. I did really well on the last envelope, and I figured I'd quit while I was ahead. It can only go downhill from there.
That's great.
But I know
the beginner's luck thing.
Yeah. I've had a couple other ones, but that one. The question I think everybody wants to know is, can you remote view lottery numbers?
I can't see why not.
I'm
poor.
I'd like to win the lottery. I don't have to be a big
I'll tell you
one.
what. There's it's like, I can't, even if I was what I would consider, very, very financially stable, I there's no way I could call myself anything other than poor when there's people walking around with billions of dollars. Like, yeah, I'm poor. like 98% of us are poor at this point. Yeah, I think, but no, you're right. I think you could technically, and there are groups that attempt to do this too, with like stocks and things. When it comes to grabbing alphanumeric information, historically speaking, that's been very challenging for some people. There have been a couple amazing remote viewers like McGonagall and others that have had the ability to very precisely grab alphanumeric information. But in often cases, like, that type of thing will come in kind of scrambled, like a dream almost. You'll see, an X might look like an X and a Y, at the same time, and it becomes very difficult to read. And I also wonder too, as far as like future information, it makes me, wonder about quantum potentiality and things of that nature. Like, if there are all of these different potentials that exist like simultaneously and in a state of superposition, I guess you could say, I feel like it would be hard to remote view the future as accurately as you could remote view the past. But, maybe, and I'm guessing, but it depends though. If all of these things, if they say that, you know, the past, the present, the future, it's all occurring all at once, that tells me you could. You know, those things are like already set in stone, and we just are sort of riding the wave that's already there. So yeah, you could. But there's been a few people that have been able to do it that did it with eerie precision. You know, don't be fooled by the skeptics out there like the Shermers and others that tell you this is all garbage. If you go and take the time and look at the data that they would probably love for you not to run into, this is real. It's happened, and statistically speaking, it is so far beyond chance, the data that they've collected on this over the years. You know, and I've experienced it. Astral does this every Thursday. Like, I have been present for some of these spaces where I've seen people get unbelievable hits, and you have to think, like, it could be anything. It could be literally anything in that envelope. And they were, not only did they get part of it, but they got most of it and described the color and like the nature of the object, what it relates to. That's mathematically absurd. And then the people that do it on a regular basis, that's even more absurd. But it's real. It's part of nature. We just don't understand it quite yet.
For somebody that's new getting into it, do you have any kind of warnings or caveats for someone who's getting into it? Because you may end up in a place you didn't plan on going.
You know, I would say with remote viewing, I would be prepared to fail a lot, because that's going to happen a lot. Astral has gotten a lot of really interesting data to show that people who are just beginning, a lot of times like their first or second remote viewing will end up being very good. And then what happens is the third, the fourth, like they bomb because their mindset has completely changed. If you
conscious instead of subconscious.
Right, exactly. So if you can gain a certain level of control and mastery over expectation at that point, that becomes a powerful tool for you to use. So I would recommend, if you're really into it, don't give up. You know, do it 1, 2, 3, 10 times and go through the failures. And you got to learn to recognize two very important things. This is what I've done, is I'm still practicing it and trying to get better at it because I'm just fascinated by it. It's like a superpower. You have to learn what your mind is conjuring up, and you have to learn what your mind is receiving. And as you get deeper into it and get better at it, you will begin to, it's like a sensation almost. It's like the difference between, you know, a dream at night and then a daydream that you're causing, right? Like those are two very, very different things, but they're also very similar. If you can figure out what the tiny little characteristics are that you can feel and recognize inside of yourself, you are really making progress at that point. It's not easy to clear your mind and then just let information come in, because a lot of times the stuff that starts to pop up, you'll find that it's you doing it. You have to try to quiet that down. And I have a hard time, Dale. I have a hard time doing that, man. My mind is all the time.
It really, there's a crossover to hypnosis. Because that's where I get into trouble. I'm a rational, analytical person. And so, you know, you're just supposed to report what you're seeing. You're not supposed to, you know, and I think that's true of the remote viewing. You're not really supposed to say it's a red wagon or whatever. You're picking up bits and pieces. It's red. Maybe you get wheels and then you put it all together once you're done. And so I think you've got a good start. Let's transition over, because I don't want to keep you too late. But let's make a transition over to what the phenomenon is. We're not talking about one thing here, obviously, right, Tom?
No, I don't think so. The data doesn't seem to suggest that. It seems like, I don't know if it's all of the above, but it's many of the above. And I think one of the things that, I don't know how many people have heard this before. I feel like you have probably thought of this. It's like, when someone has an experience, let's say they're in the woods like me, and then they see a craft and, maybe beings come down. It's like, how do we know that isn't some other force that's pretending to be aliens?
Tricksters.
Like jinn, or, the things that they have ancient words for. but despite that, I don't want people getting too bogged down with preconceived, defined terms like demons, and I really recommend people throw all of that out of the window and to just take in the information as it comes and be ready to learn and be ready to change your mind. I mean, I started off thinking that this was all aliens, extraterrestrials coming from other planets. Now I'm like, a lot of this looks like it is something a lot more spectacular, like interdimensional. And I know some people hate that word, but I don't know what else to call it. Coming from another substrate or construct of reality that we cannot visually see, but could be right next to us. Like that's, I guess, a good explanation for it.
Yeah. For me, it's just let each experience define itself. Don't have a preconceived notion about what it is.
Right.
Because everybody early days, it was all extraterrestrials, all aliens. Now, my only struggle is it seems like people are completely throwing that one out the door. And I think that that's 100% part of the phenomenon, but it doesn't explain all of it.
No, it doesn't.
As you said, I do not like the fact when people try to make it, you're going to see more and more of it. So I'm going to warn everybody about it, that there are more and more people are going to be saying it's all demons, especially from the church. And I think demons are an easy excuse. If you're afraid of something, just call it a demon and then you don't have to deal with it anymore and stuff.
That's so great that you said that. Coming from you, this is so important, being that you're a pastor.
Right. I
want to ask you that question. Do you view any of these forces as being demonic, or do you shut that out completely and say, I don't know what this is, but I'm not going to label it?
Right. Well, the way I would say it's this is I do believe that there are bad things in the world. There are things that go boom in the night. So there are some things, but I don't think you would put it all together in one basket and say everything's that. Right. I think most of what we're dealing with isn't that. But if they exist, then you would assume that there might be some instances that maybe, whether you call it jinn or whatever, or demons, whatever, maybe there isn't an isolated incident here or there. But I think it's a huge mistake, because that's where I got into a debate, kind of. Well, it wasn't really a debate. I tried talking to somebody at, I used their name. I realized they're MUFON now. I didn't even realize that. But he wanted to label all of the abductions as demonic. And he was like, and I tried to talk about the possibility of aliens, and he started going off with the idea, show me in the Bible where it says that. And I said, well, the Bible says God created the heavens and the earth. It's obviously, you think he didn't create other planets. It says right there he does. And so other beings, but it was just 100%. And he was telling me about all the people that had prayed in the name of Jesus and they went away. Well, the late Earl Grey Anderson and I had that discussion, and Earl was a Christian. And during his experience, he prayed in the name of Jesus, and guess what? They didn't go away, So
really,
there's a lot of people. I mean, there's probably as many on one side or the other. So like I said, maybe with some of the Christians who are going through some of these experiences, maybe some of that is demonic, but I think it's a huge mistake to say everything is. I think that's, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I think that is the minority, and probably more or less isolated incidents that are going on there as well. Let's talk about, because we started talking about Fringe, and Fringe is a great person. She's a friend of both of ours. But we have to be fair, and I try to do that. We have to be fair. Her experiences were pretty much negative experiences, and she's not alone. Have you ever felt threatened by any of your experiences or encounters?
Yes.
You have. Can you describe maybe what happened?
Yeah. So there was, and again, some people say that it's a haunting when they hear this, but again, I'm going under the umbrella of phenomenology, as I don't know if I'm the first person to use that word. I'm sure I'm not, but that's what I like to call it. It's just these things that we don't understand, but they are certainly part of nature and we have to learn about them. We were messing around in this abandoned house, my friends and I, on multiple occasions. And one thing led to another. And I feel that we became victims of the hitchhiker effect. And I'm actually doing a video, a long form video, kind of like the Men in Black thing. Right now, I'm in the middle of working on it, that involves the hitchhiker effect and the idea of egregores, which are, and oftentimes a group of people create a thought form that actually has the ability to physically affect reality, essentially. I don't know what that was, but it was, whatever it was, it wasn't good, because none of the weird things that happened afterwards were anything pleasant. And it forced me to go back to the property, even though the house wasn't even there anymore. It was gone. It had apparently burnt itself to the ground. They couldn't find any plausible explanation as to how it burned down, which was odd to begin with, and again, I'm not saying this is the devil or anything. I don't know. I just don't know. Whatever it was, it just wasn't good.
Right.
I went there and so it sounds silly, but it's on my YouTube channel. I did a whole video about it. It's called This House is Cursed. And that's how it felt. I went back, I shut my camera off after I did my video, and I said, look, I don't know what's here, but clearly us coming here has upset you to some degree. I don't know if you're, a spirit. I have no idea what this is, but I meant no offense. But I was young and we were just here messing around, smoking pot and having a good time and just living our lives. And for whatever reason, that disturbed something here. You, it, whatever it may be. I'm sorry. And nothing ever happened again after that, Not to say that me apologizing to it caused it to stop, but it never showed up again. And there were things that had happened that could have been really, really, really bad. Like, we were in my ex-girlfriend's living room. It was me, her, and her best friend. And we were sitting in her living room. We were watching Steve Wilkos. And I'll never forget this. We're sitting on her couch. None of us are saying anything. We're just watching the episode, kind of laughing at people, being crazy. And her friend is sitting off to my right. And she goes, hey, did you guys notice something? And we're like, what's that? And she goes, nothing weird has happened. And Dale, I swear to God, as soon as these words left her mouth, boom, her brother, my girlfriend's brother, falls down the steps carrying an air conditioner. And it lands next to his head. And I was just like, all right, you know what? Like, I'm like, come on, seriously? Like, very, very, very odd, And again, you could take all of these things in a vacuum and be like, coincidence, coincidence, coincidence. But then you combine all of them together, you see when they happened, how far apart. And a couple of them on their own were just so bizarre. And none of them were good. So these forces are out there. I don't know what they are. They might be another stream of consciousness that exists alongside ours that doesn't have a body, so it affects what it can, right? That's one of the things that I've thought about. It's like, it's just consciousness, but it's not walking around in a meat suit like you and I. It could be something like that. And for whatever reason, it gets mad.
Not everything out there is warm and fuzzy. I like what Margie Kay said one time in one of the interviews I did with her from the Unix Network. She said, and I'm not saying this is your experience, but it may apply to some other ones. But she said, if a person is mean in life, when they become a ghost or a spirit, they're still mean. I mean, they don't change just because they become a ghost. And so some of the stuff going on that we see is just, sometimes it's just mean people. Now the challenge for me, and the good news is I have friends like Fringe, and I have others who've had bad experiences, and I don't know why. I don't know. I can't tell you why. I feel like for whatever reason, I've been protected, even as a pastor. I have not. I mean, I've known other pastors that have dealt with demon possessed people and stuff. I've had none of it. at all. And even with my experiences with NHI and aliens, whatever else, I have never felt threatened in any of that. And I realize I'm an isolated case, but I also want to be clear that there are things out there that are not nice. And I'm not in any way saying just because my experiences have been benign that every experience is benign. I guess I'm just blessed. I don't know. I had one which kind of rattled me a little bit, but I didn't, even within that one, I didn't feel threatened. I felt like they were making a point, but usually sleep with my gun on my end table right next to me.
Nothing wrong with that.
Not for aliens, but for bad humans that have bad intentions if they come in my house.
We know they're around. We've seen them. There's footage of them, very clear footage of them, right? And you have to protect yourself in this world. It's a crazy place.
But I had my gun sitting there, and this gun does not have a safety on it. So I am very, very careful with it. I would never in a million years put it under my pillow. I would never in a million years set it on my mattress. And I wake up about 2 o'clock in the morning and I move my hand and my gun is literally sitting next to my hand, 6 inches from my head. Now, luckily, it was not pointing towards my head. It was pointing towards the headboard. And whether I'm right on this or not, I talked to Yvonne Smith about it, and she just said, basically aliens, they don't really like guns. They don't like weapons. And so maybe they're making some kind of point that maybe you ought to put that thing out of sight. And so, out of caution, I've done that. But I wasn't afraid over it. But it did have, because of what it was, it did absolutely make me think, this is something different than everything else. But if it had been pointing at my head, I would have a whole different opinion about it.
Yeah, I would too. I can't blame you. Wow.
So let's talk about the experiencers now. The reason why we're doing these podcasts, why we're doing these episodes is there's a lot of people that feel like, as far as the disclosure movement's going, that experiencers are being pushed to the back of the bus. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they are. Maybe not for the people who are extremely invested in this, like the people that post every day about the subject, the people that are constantly checking online about the subject, watching documentaries, the people that really, really have a vested interest in ufology. But when it comes to everything else outside of that, experiencers are definitely not getting their time to shine in this situation, because to me, they are some of the best evidence readily available. And I understand everybody has a very different opinion about what they constitute as evidence, what they consider to be evidence. But by definition, anecdotal evidence is evidence. If I may not see a murderer running around my neighborhood, wearing a black shirt with a red lightning bolt on it or something, right? But if I have 25 people that I've spoken to around the town separately, that maybe they've never even met some of them, right? And they're like, I saw a guy wearing that shirt. Like, it's like, how many people are you going to run through before you're like, okay, they're telling the truth, right? Like, it's like, do you really think every experiencer is a nut job, or they're all lying? Like, Occam's razor wouldn't even suggest that. It would actually suggest the complete opposite. Right. Typically, I think now, because things are getting a little more comfortable and it's a little less stigmatic, you're seeing a lot more people talking about things. Especially pilots are now coming out and saying things. They're telling the truth. It's like they're like, oh, I had this experience, and it seems like so many people are interested in this. Let me talk about it now, because they're not going to, threaten my livelihood. That's what this cover up has been for so many years, Dale, is like one of the goals was to inject into every person born in the world or in America. They need to find this subject foolish. It's a punchline. Don't waste your time with it. And yet here we are, and the same forces that told us that for decades are now singing a different tune. What does that tell you? You know, and yes, there's narrative control. There's their version that they want people to hear, and they probably want certain things left out of it, but they're still telling you the basic thing. We're not alone. We're being visited. We're being interacted with. And it is what it is, right? Like, it's death and taxes. It's part of life, and we just have to kind of get over it. Just like, you know, think about any of the negative things you have to deal with in your life. But it's like, how many people on average are walking out their front door every day in fear that, you know, our visitors are going to bother them? Not many people, right? Like, in comparison to how many people are on this earth. We can take this. We can deal with this. We can definitely digest the information at hand, and experiencers are so important to that. They're a wealth of knowledge, and yes, we have to weed through them with discernment, but they should be the ones that are going on CNN too, right? Like, what I'd like to see is if you bring someone onto like a national television show, you know, if they go on News Nation, wherever it may be, I would really like to see some of the more credible witnesses and experiencers that we have in the world come along with some of the mouthpieces that like, I'd like to see like David Grush bring somebody with him. Like, here's an experiencer that he personally finds to be credible, right? Create a link. If you're not going to take the experiencer by themselves as being credible, will you then take them as credible if David Grush vouches for them? I think that's a good way to go about this, but they need to be heard from. I'm one of them. You're one of them. Like, this is our outlet right now, but we need more.
Well, this is why I think you and I are being called, and others as well, is because we've got to normalize experiencers.
Yes.
We have to make it where it isn't fringe, where it isn't way out here, because that's what I keep hearing. I ask in like 4 different podcasts in a row if it's time for experiencers to come before Congress. And just about every person I talked to felt like it wasn't quite time for that. And I'm going like, if not now, then when? You know, we're talking about alien bodies. We're talking about crash retrieval and reverse engineering, you know, non-human biologics. I mean, how far is it from that to people actually having experiences, you know, with, you know, beings? And it doesn't seem that far. Now, one thing I really appreciate you coming on, Tom, but one thing I like about the group of people, I think we're going to have at least 6, 7, maybe 8 different experiencers on, is the wide variety of experiencers. We had Jason Sands last week. We had you this week. You're a great influencer on X and, you know, everything else. We're going to have Deborah Cobble, Jordan Cobble come on. She's Kathy Davis from Bud Hopkins' famous book Intruders. You know, we got Sev Talk coming on. We have a guy that, you know, most people don't even know, which is, like you said, that's going to be the cool one of the cool ones, because nobody knows his story. And so Ray Hardy's going to come on as well, and Michael Horn is going to come on and give us a second version of Billy Myers. I've had Brett Elders on as well, and then the other one from ESETI Ranch, we're going to have James Gilliland come on. And so, and there are probably going to be more. Also, Dustin, I think Edelman, I never can get his last name right, but he's MUFON. And forgive me, Dustin, for butchering your last name, but he's going to bring like the Skinwalker Ranch view of being an experiencer. And so this is exactly what I was hoping and dreaming it would be when I started this series. And so I'm really excited. I'll tell you what, the first 2 podcasts have been amazing between Jason and you and Edelson. Thank you, Susan. That's exactly it. Just an incredible human being. I got a chance to meet Dustin. We had lunch with Earl Grey Anderson in LA about a year ago or so. And that was a great experience. I was heartbroken when he died, kind of like Nick Pope as well. We've lost some really important people in this field.
Definitely. Earl,
but I'm going to let you go. I know you're tired. I know you worked a long day, and I don't want to keep you any longer.
Dale, what was I doing when I turned on my camera?
Exactly.
Right? Wait, hold on, Dale.
His meal's still sitting there waiting to eat, and you still got to
I'm
go for
like,
the
how
walk
you
with your
doing,
mom and
Dale?
dad.
Yeah,
Right?
right.
Dog
We got
walk?
to take the dog for a walk. And
Yeah.
listen,
All
man,
right.
I really am always honored. I always say this to go on someone else's show. You've been a very good friend to me. Consider you a distant friend, obviously, from across the country, but you're a good guy. You're an open-minded person. You've never done me wrong, and I hope that other experiencers that are watching this would be willing to participate in your series. Jason Sands, people can say whatever they like about his story, whatever. He has been such an amazing guy behind the scenes. Me getting to know him, Digby, and myself, like he's a stand-up guy in my interactions with him, and that's what I want people to know, is that he's just been a gentleman. You as well. There's just so many good people in our community. Astral too. I had a great time when he and I came on board here. This is a great idea that you have, and I would encourage people to not only watch this, but if you have something to talk about, participate in this. This is a good forum for that. Don't be afraid to speak up.
Absolutely. And for everybody, the links to Tom's YouTube channel and even his email is in the description of the YouTube video. Well, I'm going to let you go get your cold food. You might have to pop it back in the microwave or something like that. But once again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate
Dale,
it.
this is my genuine honor and pleasure, my friend. I'm going to bounce out of here, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Well, I want to thank everyone for watching. If you're new to the channel, you can really help it out by not only subscribing, but go ahead and share this video. Let other people know that we're doing this series. And I think it will really make a difference in the community. And who knows, maybe if we get enough people watching, we do enough videos, maybe some of those that are kind of in control of the disclosure movement, and maybe those in Congress, maybe that'll be the push they need till we can finally get, experiencers like Mario Woods or Deborah Jordan Cobble, or, any of those people that are familiar. And I think we need to have some of the people from the past. We need to understand that they are credible witnesses as well, even if they don't have a title behind their names. But anyway, thank you so much for being on the podcast. In 2 weeks, we're going to have Deborah Jordan Cobble on. Have a good night.
Woke up in a parking lot, shoes on wrong, phone long gone, taste of metal on my tongue, sky still buzzing in my lungs, flashes in a stereo blue, voices shaped like colored glass, every question I could ask, answered then it double back, taking up